In my EXE 520 class, we have been asked to conduct a field visitation to a public building to see how accessible it is to people who are physically, visually, or hearing impaired. I chose to conduct my research at a public park in Lockport known as Day Road Park. I chose this specific park because it has public restrooms, a Santa's workshop, and a drinking fountain for me to assess. In this presentation, I will be discussing my findings on the facilities at the public park and recommendations for improvement. According to the accessibility standards checklist that we were supposed to follow for this project, there are 4 main components. The first component of this checklist is approach and entrance. As you can see from the photo of the parking lot of the park, there were no lines for parking spots. Therefore, there were no passenger loading zones for people to get on and off a van if need be. There were, however, 2 spaces provided for people with disabilities. They were identified with the International Symbol of Accessibility sign, as you can see from the photo. The signs, however, did not have van accessible on them. The accessible parking spots were located on the closest route to the accessible entrances. Although there were no lines to decipher how many spaces were available in the parking lot, I would guesstimate about that there were 20 total spots available. Therefore, this does meet the ADA requirements. Access aisles were also not marked. Therefore, people who would not feel discouraged to park on top of a vehicle who needed van access. Since the parking lot did not have a roof, there was adequate vertical space for van access to spaces. Looking at the accessibility route, you can see that the route is stable, firm, and slip resistant. In each route, the ones here are to the bathrooms, or the other ones that look the exact same were to the workshop, were 46 inches wide between these black poles. To get to the workshop, there was one accessible way besides using the stairs. So as you can see, the stairs are on the left photo. The inaccessible entrance did not have a sign indicating that a ramp was on the other side. The ramp pictured in the middle was 41 inches wide and greater than 16 feet long. The ramp was a maximum of 37.5 inches tall. This means that for every inch of height change, there was at least 20 inches of root run. The ramp was stable, firm, and slip resistant as well. The ramp had handrails on both sides, and they were 37 inches tall from the ramp's surface. At the top of the ramp, there was a level landing that was at least 60 inches wide and 60 inches in length. The handrails were non-circular, and the cross-section of the handrails were 1.5 inches. On the front of the ramp was the International Symbol of Accessibility sign. However, from the photo from the far right, you can see that it is broken and needs to be fixed. The level landing to approach the pull side of the door had 24 inches for maneuvering clearance beyond the latch, plus 72 inches for clearance of depth. The threshold of the entrance was 1/4 of an inch tall. The door handle is not easily operable with one hand as it involves a person twisting their wrist to open the door. The door handle is 36 inches above the level landing. Upon entering the workshop, there are no carpets on the floor. The second component of this checklist is the accessibility to goods and services. Upon entering the workshop, you are on the first floor. This floor is the only floor in the workshop, and it looks like one big room. Everything in the workshop is easily accessible, including Santa's chair. The ground floor is stable and slip resistant. Inside the workshop, since there is only one level, there is no need for ramps or elevators. All the routes to the limited parts of the workshop are exactly 36 inches wide. There are no indication signs in the workshop, therefore there are no tactile signs either. The operable light switch in Santa's workshop is 46 inches above the ground, and there is a clear floor space by the light switch that is 36 inches wide and 50 inches long. The light switch can easily be operable with one hand. Since the workshop is designated for one family to come in at a time, all families must wait outside in line. Therefore, there are no chairs or spaces designed for the waiting inside. The third component of this checklist is the toilet rooms. At the public park, there is only one facility for public restroom use. The entrance walkways to the bathrooms are 46 inches long, as you can see from the photo on the left. Upon entering the bathroom, there is a push door. It is slightly heavy for the average person, but still manageable to open with one arm. The threshold of the door only comes up about 1/4 of an inch. The door opening width is 35 inches wide, and therefore is 30 inches of maneuvering clearance beyond the latch of the door and 60 inches of clearance depth. There is an accessible route to the toilet that is 38 inches wide. The accessible bathroom is the last stall in the bathroom, as pictured in the right photo. There were no tactile signs indicating where the accessible bathrooms were. There was a privacy wall that was 30 inches wide and 60 inches long. The accessible bathroom door swung outwards. In the bathroom, there were enough room for a person in a wheelchair to turn around. The bathroom had a coat hook that was 56 inches above the floor. The bathroom had 2 grab bars on the walls. The side wall grab bar measured to be exactly 42 inches, and the rear bar measured to be exactly 36 inches. The toilet, or as the checklist calls it, the water closet, is not wall mounted. The flush handle control on the toilet was located 28 inches above the ground, and it was easy to use with one hand. The flush control was on the open side of the water closet. The toilet dispenser was located 12 inches away from the toilet. The dispenser was located 20 inches above the ground. The dispenser allowed for continuous flow of toilet paper. The height of the toilet was 18 inches, and the toilet was located 17 inches from the side wall. The bathroom in total was 60 inches wide and 96 inches long. The width of the bathroom door was 32 inches wide. The handle of the bathroom door was 47 inches above the floor, and the lock was located 40 inches above the floor. There were door pulls on both sides of the door, and the handle was easily operable with one hand. In the bathroom, there was clear access to the sink, hand dryer, and restroom. The clearance of the sink was 18 inches, therefore a person in a wheelchair was able to get close enough to reach the faucet. The counter surface of the sink was exactly 34 inches above the floor. The clearance from the floor to where the pipes are was 14 inches high, therefore it was long enough for toe clearance for a person in a wheelchair. The pipes were covered for safety purposes. The faucets were easy to use as they are just pushed down. The soap dispenser is 43 inches above the floor and the hand dryer was 33 inches above the floor. The last component of this checklist is additional access. The only additional access that this park had was one drinking fountain. The drinking fountain was easily accessible from a sidewalk 46 inches long. The clearance of the drinking fountain was 60 inches wide by 160 inches long. The drinking fountain itself was 13 inches wide and 34 inches tall. The drinking fountain can easily be operated with one hand as it was just a push button. The spout is exactly 36 inches above the floor and the edge of the fountain is 8 inches from the floor. So after going through the survey and the checklist, here are my recommendations for this facility at this park. Starting with the parking lot and entrance of the park, there should be painted lines to indicate the number of spaces available to the public. There should also be van accessible spaces that are at least 11 feet wide with access aisles at least 5 feet wide. Currently at the park, there are only 2 available parking spots that are easily accessible to the entryway of the park, and they have no lines indicating to others how much space a person in a wheelchair may need. At Santa's workshop, there needs to be more signs indicating the location of the nearest accessible entrance. At the stairs, there is no indication where the ramp is, and at the ramp, there is a broken international symbol of accessibility sign. This must be repaired. The door handle to Santa's workshop should be replaced with a push or pull door. That way it is more easily accessible with one hand instead of having a doorknob. As for the recommendations for the access to goods and services, I believe that tactile signs should be added upon the entrance of Santa's workshop for a person who may be visually impaired. For the bathrooms, I recommend that they install more accessibility signs indicating to people which bathrooms are more accessible. They should also install a tactile sign upon entering the bathroom for those with visual impairments. The door to the bathroom itself was easily accessible with a push-pull method. However, I suggest that having an automatic door that stays open for 5 seconds after being pushed would be easier since the door to the bathroom was a little bit heavy. In the bathroom itself, the level of the hook on the accessible bathroom needs to be lowered, as the maximum height of the hook should only be 48 inches above the floor. The hook currently sits 56 inches above the floor. The toilet dispenser should also be moved closer to the toilet. It is currently 12 inches away from the toilet. However, it should be between 7 and 9 inches away from the toilet. It also might be easier to have a door become self-closing. I suggest replacing the door. As for additional access, the only suggestion I really have is to add another drinking fountain for a standing person. This means that a spout outlet should be between 38 to 43 inches tall. Overall, this park seems to be easily accessible for those who may be physically, hearing, or visual impaired. However, like most facilities, it could use improvements. Thank you for listening to my findings from the survey conducted at Day Road Park.